The faulted fire detection and suppression system responses with all the vast fire suppression detection throughout. Somehow, the reactor building and the control building had almost no protection. For the reactor building, the control building, the fire detection and suppression systems were all in a partial or limited readiness condition, or the only source of firefighting was limited to manual firefighting. Complacency watchstanders and supervisors. Several senior managers that in fact knew polyurethane foam was flammable. The plant superintendent admitted to the NRC inspector, "I was aware the polyurethane was flammable, but it never occurred to me that these penetrations were being tested using candles." Shift engineers had evaluated the fire that happened 2 days ago, as well as using lighted candles to check for air leaks, and concluded that the procedure should not be used anymore. However, no one in management thought it to be a problem, merely just logged the events and moved on. Continuing, complacent watchstanders and supervisors. Previous fires in the polyurethane foam material had not always been reported at appropriate levels of management, and on the occasions when reported, no action was taken to prevent recurrence. All this evidence put together would say that a fire at the Browns Ferry nuclear propulsion plant wasn't really a question of if, but when and why would be very apparent. Firefighting efforts. From beginning to end, the firefighting efforts were far from par and simply horrible when considering the strategic safety placed on nuclear power plants. The built-in Cardox system used to flood rooms with carbon dioxide had all been purposely secured by electricians, leaving only the manual crank system. This manual crank method had a metal that needed a screwdriver to get to the manual crank, stalling firefighting efforts. Even after being used, it failed to put the fire out in the spreader room and caused huge piles of black smoke to fill the control room, worsening the firefighting efforts. Several wheeled dry extinguishers were brought to the spreader room to fight the fire, but found to have no nozzles or inoperable, stalling firefighting efforts. Not only was there faulted equipment and automatic safety features, but breathing apparatuses were in short supply, missing face masks and not fully charged, leaving many of the Scott air packs not usable, limiting the amount of people to fight the fire and the length of time in which they could fight the fire. On top of this, the secured and inadequate equipment, the firefighting procedures, it seemed ignored, even if known by all. At 12:15 p.m., the electrical inspector informed the guard in the turbine room of the fire. The code to sound the alarm via telephone wasn't called the guard, instead alerted a supervisor who alerted the operator, violating the fire procedure, which says all personnel must sound alarm in case of the fire. Several key alarms associated with the reactor were also ignored. Once the fire alarm started going off, instead of the operators in the control room shutting down the reactor, they instead silenced the alarm and kept on with operations. When alarms for equipment started to come in, the operators just shut down equipment not needed. Not until 11 minutes after our fire alarm and the reactor pumps quit did the reactor operators begin to shut down the reactor. Had the operators not been able to maintain the core cover, a meltdown would have occurred. Athens fire chief pointed out several times that the use of water was needed to put out the fire. They were using type B and C extinguishers on a type A fire. The use of water would have immediately put out the fire. Not until 4.5 hours later did the superintendent finally listen and use the water, and fire was out in 20 minutes. Cost of the fire. Ultimately, the total cost of the fire at the Browns Ferry nuclear propulsion plant will never be known. Here's a chart breaking down the cost that can be calculated. The cost of retrofitting 104 nuclear power plants was estimated in 1976 to be between $7 billion and $12 billion in 1976 dollars. We do not know the actual cost of retrofitting the plants because 37 years after the fire, the nuclear licenses are still retrofitting the plants or designating alternate fire protection schemes to demonstrate an equivalent level of safety. Fires since Browns Ferry fire. Since the Browns Ferry fire incident, there have been several nuclear incident reports, a few of which were fires. None of the fires have been as severe as the Browns Ferry nuclear propulsion plant, but have proven that none of the power plants in the nuclear industry are retrofitting their plants as required. Fires since the Browns Ferry fire incident. March 5th, 1989. Arizona atmospheric dump valves fail, leading to main transformer fire and emergency shutdown, costing $14 million. November 17, 1991, New York, safety and fire problems forced shutdown of the reactor for 13 months, costing $5 million. March 26, 2010, Brunswick, North Carolina, fire from electric blankets from welding. Tape holding the blankets together helped spread the fire. March 28, 2010, Hartsville, South Carolina, fire in an electrical breaker, followed by a subsequent blaze in another electrical breaker near the fire. March 28, 2010, Cleveland, Ohio, fire burning for 4 hours, fed by oil in a water pump's lubrication system. Note the following reference.